So have you ever wondered what happens if a client you're doing work for actually sues you and says, hey, you caused me financial harm, but you never actually caused them any bodily injury or any property damage? Did you know that your general liability policy won't cover you in all scenarios, specifically if there's no triggered cause of loss? In this video, I want to talk with you about professional liability insurance, what it is, why it's important, and some of the differences between that and a general liability policy. Also, stay tuned at the end. I'll kind of talk through what pricing might look like for a professional liability policy. Hey, welcome back to the Business Insurance Playbook channel. If you're new here, thanks for joining us. If you've been here before, welcome. Like I said, welcome back. Do me a huge favor, subscribe and hit the thumbs up button so we help get the word out to other business owners about how to buy insurance more effectively. All right, so what is professional liability insurance? To put it as plainly as I can, it's basically insurance for you if you provide professional services or advice or counsel or anything like that, and that advice causes someone else financial harm. So let's say you do design work, right? So you're an architect and you're drafting up blueprint, and the building just isn't working properly, and it all comes down to your professional design. Or maybe you're paid to be a surveyor, right, and to test soil samples, and it's determined that the soil samples are good, right, based on your testing. Well, a year later, there's cracks in the concrete or whatever, and they come back and say the soil samples that you tested were tested incorrectly. They're actually really bad, right? Or if you're an insurance agent like I am, and I give advice to someone and I say, hey, you should really buy this insurance policy or not buy this policy, and my client listens to me and then it doesn't perform the way it's supposed to, they could sue me for a mistake. Or maybe they sent in, hey, please add this vehicle. I never added that vehicle. And now their vehicle gets in an accident, it's not covered, and they have a claim, they have financial harm, right? So those are just different scenarios of what professional liability would cover. And so from a construction perspective, it's really important if you're a contractor to look at this if you're doing any sort of design work, right? Now, this is where the gray area comes in, because a general liability policy, right, like I said in the beginning of this video, that will cover you for if you cause bodily injury or property damage, right? If your work does, or your products that you provide. So if you're out there and you're a construction company and you install something incorrectly and it tips over and it kills someone or crushes a car, that's what your general liability policy is for. But look, there was actually bodily injury and property damage. There has to be one of those two things for an actual insurable event to occur. So if bodily injury doesn't happen and property damage doesn't happen, but again, there's just a financial harm, maybe a building, you design a commercial building that was supposed to open in January of 2025, and because of your errors, it can't open until 2026. That company just lost a year of potential rent, right? That's another scenario where like professional liability would kick in. And so it's just really important that if you are providing any professional services, you buy a professional liability policy. Now, the general liability policy, like I said, there is some coverage for it's called like ways, scopes, and means. Every carrier is a little bit different on their wording. And so the question will come up, hey, we're on a job site, we're a utility contractor, and we got a change order request, or we advise the client, maybe we drill this way instead of that way, because I think it just makes sense based on our experience. Now, it's not really a professional service, right? But let's say that advice that you give leads to a claim issue occurring. That's not a bodily injury or property damage scenario, right? That's where there's some give back in your general liability policy for, like I said, ways, scopes, and means that come with the job. You just really have to look at your policy. You have to talk with an agent who knows construction and figure out what is best for you. One other thing I want to note about a professional liability insurance policy before I get to the cost is the way the retro date, the way claims work. Okay, so most general liability policies are occurrence based, meaning if a claim occurred back in 2016 and it's 2024, the carrier that's going to pick up the coverage is going to go back to the policy from 2026 or 2016. That GL carrier is going to be on the hook. Professional typically works on a claims made basis. So you provided professional design work back in 2016. Here it is, 2024, a claim pops up from the work you did back then. Well, then what's going to happen is the carrier you're with now will cover you all the way back to your retro date on your policy. So if you ever change professional liability carriers, make sure you keep the retro date and give that to your new carrier, because otherwise you lose coverage going all the way back to whenever that you first bought a professional liability policy. This is just really important to understand. So last but not least, let's just talk cost. This is really going to depend on what type of work you're doing. How much of it, because professional liability is generally based on your overall sales, right? And so sometimes I've had clients get frustrated because they're not a professional company, but they do stamping or they need a professional policy. And the underwriters will ask, hey, what are your overall sales? And they'll base it on the total sales. Some underwriters might work with you and only put it on, that portion of the design work, but some will put it on the overall sales. So you got to make sure you're talking with an underwriter who understands that. But generally speaking, the cost is relatively low. I mean, it's going to depend on what you do. I've seen policies as low as $1,000. I've seen them go all the way up to $50,000 to $100,000. It just depends on, again, how much work you're doing and what exactly type of design work that you're doing. Hey, that's all I got for you. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. If you want to talk or you have questions about your own business insurance policy, or you're questioning, do I need professional? Send me a message. I'm happy to talk with you and see if I can help. Thanks.